Are companies exploiting Chinese laborers? We've all heard the stories about the wretched working conditions and low wages of Chinese sweatshop laborers. But are these sweatshops actually helping improve conditions for Chinese workers? Many claim that Chinese workers are being exploited. Many factory workers do face dangerous working conditions, but farming is not much safer. Assuming farming is a sweatshop laborer's next best alternative, let's examine this alternative. As you can see here, 39.5% of the labor force works in agriculture in China, and 27.2% of the labor force works in industry. However, as a percentage of GDP, agriculture makes up only 9.6%, and industry makes up 46.8%. Using this figure in the per capita GDP, we find that an industrial worker is 7 times better off than an agricultural worker. Sweatshops have helped greatly improve China's standard of living. So although these conditions are certainly better than farming, are they good enough? Some claim governments of countries such as China institute minimum wage laws to ensure a basic standard of living to all workers. But is that really a good idea? Let's consider the implications of such a policy using supply and demand. Here we have a free market for unskilled labor. The quantity employed of laborers and the wages of laborers is set by the forces of supply and demand at this equilibrium right here. Now suppose a government puts in place a minimum wage law. This is in effect a price floor. Sellers can't sell their service, in this case unskilled labor, for lower than a certain amount. As a result, companies are going to be forced to fire the least productive workers that they are making a loss of as a result of the new price floor. They can either do this or they can go out of business. So in the long run, what will the future of Chinese laborers be? Will the Chinese be forever resigned to the level of wages the free market has set, or will conditions continue to improve? Just as sweatshops have benefited Chinese workers, they will continue benefiting workers of China. As workers continue working, they'll become more skilled at their jobs. As a result, instead of being in one pool of unskilled workers, the labor market will be many different pools of workers with different skills. This process of specialization is the trademark of any developed economy. Because workers of any specialty will be competing with a smaller number of workers, they will be less replaceable to employers, and thus their wages will be bid up. We can see that the equilibrium wage shifts from here to here as the supply of workers in any particular field contracts as it becomes specialized. This is how the United States became prosperous, as we transitioned from an agricultural economy to an industrial economy. Workers start out in low-paid, relatively unsafe positions. However, as these workers became more skilled, the value of their labor increased, and as such, wages and working conditions improved. However, for this specialization to occur, companies must be allowed to continue freely using Chinese labor. More regulations, minimum wage laws, or boycotts of Chinese goods will result in companies being forced to close factory doors and employ fewer people. Capital investments will just simply drop off. And as Carl Mentor tells us in his Principle of Economics, savings and investments are necessary for economic growth. Regulations placed on employers will slow down this investment, or even bring it to a halt completely. The ultimate reason for why free trade is good for China goes back to the basic underlying principle of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. A voluntary exchange only occurs if both parties receive a benefit from it. If both parties did not benefit, the exchange would simply not occur. Government legislation prevents voluntary exchanges from occurring, and thus both parties are denied the benefit of the exchange, and as a result, the economy is worse off as a whole. Ultimately, a laborer in a sweatshop has a choice to work or not to work in a sweatshop. Factory owners aren't holding a gun in the head of these laborers. If they were, it would be a completely different story, but that's not the case. In conclusion, sweatshops have already improved the living conditions of the Chinese. Paying Chinese laborers above market value for their labor will lead to negative consequences for the Chinese laborers, and Chinese employed by multinational corporations and sweatshops will continue to see their living conditions rise, just as they have in the past. The demagogued multinational corporations are not exploiting Chinese workers. Instead, Chinese workers are benefiting immensely from multinational corporations.